You are listening to Peak One Sports.
What's going on, everybody? Thank you for listening to this episode of the Sports Page on the Peak One Sports Network. I'm Ashton Nix with Dan Boyer and Chris Robb Jr. What's going on, guys? Chris?
Nothing much, man. I miss you guys, man. I feel like I haven't seen you in like 2 months.
Yeah, it's been kind of weird. It's
Yeah.
Dan did his show, then I did a show by myself, and it's the first time, first show of the new year, and first show in a while we've all been back together.
Yeah, those holidays make it feel like we haven't seen each other since last year.
Yeah, Dan, you know how doing a show, you get your first dose of doing a show by yourself, and so I didn't realize how dry I sounded when I said we weren't bringing you back on because the Cowboys had a winning streak and then they started losing, until I watched it back and I sounded serious. I'm not sure that the joke came across as it should have, but
Nah, man, seems pretty serious to me. They finally got that win and I came back. I mean,
yeah, we'll see. Now they should win this week, and we'll get to that. So Dan, you were back from New Jersey. How did that whole thing go for you?
oh man, it was a rough trip. I mean, it's obviously a long road trip to drive from Texas to Jersey and back. But I'm glad it's over. I'm glad, I got my family down here and everything. I'm, excited to be able to spend more time with them and everything. So to be honest, I'm just glad the whole thing's over. Road trip in a moving truck from Jersey to Texas, I would not recommend it. So just if you can avoid it, please do. Just my advice.
Yeah, every time I've ever moved, we've only used movers this last time we moved in the house, maybe 7 years ago. I always say I'm never moving again, and I always do. And then I paid $1,000 for movers to move all my crap from 2 towns over, maybe a 15-minute drive. And most of the stuff they just put in the garage because we were like, we don't want to keep paying and paying and paying. And it was still worth it to me to spend that money because it's ridiculous to move all the heavy stuff in and out of places. And yeah, that is not fun.
Yeah, if that would have been an option, but I think it was like at least $5,000
Yeah.
to move him from Jersey.
Yeah.
Pay other people to do it. So it was definitely I think I can do it for less type situation.
Yeah.
But
if he was living anywhere,
I wouldn't recommend it.
If he was living anywhere but Jersey, I might tell him just to stay. That might make more financial sense.
I mean,
maybe California.
But I'm glad he's here. And hopefully we'll get him involved here with Peak One soon. We've kind of got something in the works to do the sport cards with him. So that's my Uncle Pat that will get involved with that. So I've got some plans. I've got some things working. I'm still kind of talking it over with you, Ashton, but I'm excited for some of the things we got coming in the future. So you guys keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, for sure. And Chris, how was your Christmas, New Year, holiday, whatever you all celebrated?
Yeah. So yeah, it was good. It was a lot of moving, like not it's necessarily moving, but so I'm in Chicago. I flew to Dallas because that's where I'm from, and then we drove to Mississippi because that's where like all of my family is, and we had like a family gathering and things like that. So from here to Dallas, and then that next morning we drove to Mississippi. It's about 6 hours. Spent 2 days there, came back Christmas Eve, and then I spent the last probably like 5 days in Dallas. I just got back to Chicago New Year's Eve. So, kind of just moving around, very exhausting. Yeah, very exhausting. But it's, it was a lot of fun. It's great seeing like my whole family and everything. So, just kind of just ready to chill. I don't go back in until Tuesday, so I'm just kind of just relaxing, watching on the game, just trying to just get my balances back, and then getting back into the swing of things. But everything was great.
Awesome, glad to hear it. Glad we're all back on this, and hopefully we for the foreseeable future, we're all on this show every week as much as we can be. Make sure to subscribe to the Peak One Sports YouTube page. Comment and hit that notification button so you know whenever one of our new episodes drops, and you can listen to this show as well as many others on the Peak One Sports Network, however you listen to podcasts. And this episode is brought to you by Betalytics. Don't bet with your gut. Check out Betalytics and get help making your picks using their AI algorithms. Use promo code PEAK1 for 25% off when you sign up today. Go to betalytics.com to start betting smarter. And that, of course, is down in the description below. So we have a lot to unpack here from the last show you did, Dan, after the Buffalo loss.
Yeah.
And then I did the show after the Miami loss, and now they didn't play great, but a lot has changed since then, from we're satisfied with the number 5 seed to if they don't end up with the number 2 seed, it seems like all hell's going to break loose. But a lot to unpack. Cowboys, Lions. Dan, let's start with you. Overall, up until the controversial end that we'll talk about, what was your thoughts on that game?
I mean, to be honest, it seemed like a pretty slow, kind of uneventful game. Went into that halftime 7-3, Cowboys leading and everything. I feel like I felt the same way I was, the last time I was on, and I was talking about it. Like it's frustrating to watch a top offense just not perform at a top, level, and it was getting kind of frustrating because I mean, I'm not trying to necessarily take too much away from the Lions. They're having one of the greatest seasons they've had in the last 20, 30 years. And it's great to watch, but it felt like the Cowboys should have had a better offensive game going that whole time. The defense was doing their job. They're stopping the Lions offense. They're getting off the field. They were even able to stop the Lions a few times on, big third downs, big fourth downs that kept them from kicking field goals and everything too. So, I mean, they were keeping them off the scoreboard and giving the offense plenty of opportunities to go back out there and score. Just felt like they weren't quite getting it done, which is insane to look at too. Because when you look at CeeDee Lamb's line, the what was it, 13 receptions, 227 yards, you would think the Cowboys would score more than 20 points in a game. You know what I mean? Like 224 yards just feels like a 2-touchdown kind of game. And they had 2 touchdowns like total the whole game. So it's just one of those situations. It was kind of frustrating to see the Cowboys struggle as much as they were. And then, for the Lions to really just kind of turn it on there in that fourth quarter and make it such a competitive game. Personally, it wasn't even the controversial nature of the officiating at the end. I actually thought that the Cowboys coaching staff made a huge mistake on that final drive as far as clock management went. You got that second interception off of Goff. There's 2 minutes, 5 seconds left. You obviously run the ball and you go into that 2-minute warning. They get the bad call on of tripping on Hendershot that was actually against Hendershot. It should have been against the Lions and not the Cowboys. But even if they take that penalty and they start off, inside that 2-minute drive with a 1st and 25, run the ball 3 times, and you're able to burn Detroit's timeouts and even if you give them the ball back and only kick your field goal, Detroit's only got 30 seconds left, I think, based on like the math that I was doing for it. So you put Detroit in a situation where they're down by 7. They've only got 30 seconds left of game clock and no timeouts left to travel the whole field. I mean, that should have been the situation that they were in instead of, a minute 41. Any quarterback in the NFL worth his salt is going to be able to look at a minute 41 left on the clock and know like he's got a shot, like any NFL quarterback, I'm going to say that might as well be a 2-minute drill, a full 2-minute drill. And they had to work the field even with no timeouts and everything. That's plenty of time to run up and spike the ball, get your guys some out routes, some corner routes, and get them out of bounds and whatever. And I mean, they did, and they made a great effort there at the end to try and get that 2-point conversion. Unfortunately, I think the play worked against them, and that they were trying to confuse the Cowboys, and instead they confused the referees, and the whole confusion with who reported as eligible and everything. But like my opinion, the referees never should have been in that position, because the Cowboys should have did a better job with clock management there at the very end,
Yeah.
and it shouldn't have been such a worrisome 90 seconds of the last in the last quarter. This game should have been much more in hand for the Cowboys at the end than it was, and it just feels like the coaching staff balked hard and really gave the Lions an opportunity to try and steal it. Cowboys got real lucky with the officiating at the end, and I mean, the Miami game, the officiating worked against us. In the Lions game, the officiating worked in our favor. And I mean, sometimes that's the nature of the beast. I
Yeah.
hate to be the guy that's like, bad officiating is a part of the game, and you try to take as much of it out as you can. But I mean, it's going to be a part of the game, unless you're letting robots control the whole thing and like laser lines and whatever. So I mean,
Yeah.
it just I think ultimately I'm glad the Cowboys came out with the win. It's even better, considering the Eagles got the loss. But man, you cannot let the officials beat you. You can't let penalties beat you. And it feels like that's a lot of like what the Cowboys struggles have been here recently. It's been almost a little bit out of their control with the officiating,
Hmm.
and in their control with the penalties. And I mean, obviously you can only take care of whatever you can take care of, but lucky break for the Cowboys. Can't believe the Eagles ended up losing. We're in this prime position now. Should totally get this win coming up.
Yeah.
Snatch up the or clinch the division and everything. But man, what a crazy couple of weeks, really. Even well for the Eagles too. And 4 losses in 5 games, just really kind of really giving the opportunity back to the Cowboys to clinch the division. So crazy few weeks. It's been a lot of fun to watch, to be honest.
A lot of points that I want to make coming out of this game. First off, I think we were getting comfortable with the logic of the Cowboys playing at home and on the road, playing on turf versus playing on grass. And this one just kind of, I think we're comfortable with it in the sense that it makes sense and we can live with it to an extent, especially now that the Cowboys should at least have a couple of games in the playoffs, assuming they take care of business next week and the wild card round and all that. But this one just kind of threw everything up for a loop because they go from averaging 40 points a game at home to, scoring, what was it, 21-20. Is that right? Do I have that right?
29.
2019. Yeah.
2019. That outside, and it's not even as good as it looks, and it doesn't even look that good because outside of the 92-yard reception to CD Lamb, the offense didn't do much.
Nope.
And then now we're worried about the defense, where the last 2 weeks the defenses have played well. The defense has played well until the final drive. You let Miami run it down your throat. You let Detroit run it down your throat. Even when with Buffalo, you understand it just wasn't your night. But these 2 games, you play really well, and then all of a sudden you don't. The Cowboys, of course, shouldn't have even been in that position with the controversial call. You call tripping, first down, they run out the clock. I think McCarthy's, in his mind, his game management was, we haven't been able to run the ball, which was true. We've kind of been able to pass the ball, and our defense has been playing well. So this is what we're going to try to do. Now, if they would have completed a couple of passes, maybe it turns out different. Maybe you go into it thinking, hey, he's a genius. But he didn't, and they ended up taking, after that interception, taking like 15 seconds off the clock, something like that. It wasn't much at all. You were on one side of the 2-minute warning, and did they even make it to the 2-minute warning before they gave the ball back to Detroit? I think they did.
Yeah,
They just got on the other
they
side of the 2-minute warning.
yeah, they started at 2:05 and they ran the ball and got the 2-minute warning, but then they threw the ball 3 times in a row
Yeah.
and they give the ball back to Detroit with 141.
Okay. So
And
just
they
over
and they
20
were in
seconds.
field goal range that whole time. As soon as they got the interception, and even when they were backed up the 15 after that bad tripping call, they're
Mm-hmm.
still in field goal range. So even if you run the ball 3 times and you don't gain any yardage, you only milk clock, and
Yeah.
Detroit burns their 2 timeouts, you still manage to run the clock down to like 30 seconds on that fourth down. You call your timeout, and then you go out there and kick. Because in all honesty, I don't understand what they were thinking when they went out there on 4th and 6 and tried to pull a hard count. Like, what do you get out of that? Even if they get the hard count, it's a 5-yard penalty. It's 4th and 1. You're not going to
Yeah.
suddenly get a first down out of that. So they went out there and they like wasted a timeout for no reason. It was like in this situation, maybe you go out there and you try the hard count if the clock is running,
Yeah.
and you call your timeout for that fourth down when you've run the maximum amount of time off, and you leave them 30 seconds. But it makes no sense to me to like throw the ball 3 times, especially when it's the 2-minute warning. They threw the ball on that first down, 1st and 25, and it's to Lamb, it's completed. Detroit calls a timeout, but the second pass on second down is incomplete. That's a free timeout for Detroit. What are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah. And again, there are many reasons that it should have never come down to this controversial call. But what a lot of people aren't saying is we'll kind of break it down as the ref announced number 70, Dan Skipper, as the eligible receiver. He said it over the PA. Yep. People on TV heard it. Dan Campbell says they didn't hear it. Jared Goff says they didn't hear it.
But everybody else.
Yeah, I'm willing. Yeah, I'm willing to live with that. Whatever. They didn't hear it. Whatever. Dan Campbell admitted they were. He ran 58 and 68. Tyler Decker 68 was the one who supposedly reported. And I'm fine with that logic. They run 68, 58 out there, hoping that the Cowboys defense sees two players, 68, close to the same number, and then maybe in announcing it with all the loud noise, some people hear 68, some hear 58. I don't know. And then at the last second, Dan Skipper runs up there, just from across the field, full sprint, and then he reports as the eligible, or supposedly, according to the ref, reports as the eligible receiver, and that's who they say it out loud. So with all that, they throw the ball to Tyler Decker, 2-point conversion, good. If you go and don't throw the penalty flag and throw all that up in the air and just say, no, screw it, they scored, whatever, they got the 2-point conversion, then it screws over the Cowboys just as much because the Cowboys were told number 70. That's why they didn't, guard number 68. I don't know that it would have been any different. The Cowboys would have probably had somebody on number 68 or watching him, but he was wide open. And you saw the frustration on the defensive side pointing because they were told number 70. It wasn't just like, okay, we're going to screw them over. If they score this 2-point conversion, we're going to throw it all up because we need the Cowboys to win or whatever. I'm not saying the NFL doesn't want that, but in the moment, the ref said number 70. The ref screwed up. I agree with that. But it screwed over both teams, whoever got the call or whoever didn't get the call, because the Cowboys didn't even know number 68 was the eligible receiver. All they saw was 3 players run up to the referee, and the ref said number 70. Said it twice.
It's tough. It's tough. It's I do want to salute the Lions though. They're I feel like Cowboys fans. I'm a Cowboys fan.
Yeah.
I think we're way better than the Lions. I feel like it's way closer than everyone thinks.
Yeah.
I feel like they're a really good team. They were 11-4 for a reason, And
They
in
have a
reality,
really good defense too, and that's why they were able to, for the most part, slow down the Cowboys' offense at home.
Yeah, really good defense, and looking at the stats in reality, I mean they had more yards, they had more time of possession, they rushed for more yards, they passed more yards per completion. It was, one could say that the Cowboys squeaked by and stole one in a sense because
They absolutely
the Cowboys have never been good in those guarding those 2-minute drills. They've never been good at them, and Mike McCarthy's has been questioned for his time management since his time with the Cowboys. So it's I do want to just salute the Lions for that and for winning their division. They came out of nowhere, even though they finished the year last year pretty strong. But just going on the Cowboys, it's just a lot of things they have to tweak. Especially like rushing the ball. We have to find our running game. Where did it go? Tony Pollard has been. I mean, he's not even. I don't want to say like half of himself from last year, but it's just like
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. They just don't really
Yeah,
utilize.
so quiet.
Yeah, it's just very quiet. Just finding him, but CD and Dak, they look like the best wide receiver quarterback combo in the league, at least right now. Right now, but they just got a lot of. They just have to tweak a few things, especially going into the last week of the season. They have to close it out. It's a big game. It usually always comes down to the Eagles and the Washington, like the last game of the year, trying to win a division.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, and the point you made on Tony Pollard, yeah, I'm not sure. Unless you just break down film, it's hard to tell. Is it the offensive line? Is it Tony Pollard? But he seemed just not be able to run the ball one way or the other. What was that, Saturday night? And again, that makes sense of why Mike McCarthy handled things the way he did. But and hindsight's 2020, where we're looking at, hey, you threw 2 incompletions. That again, that one that he threw down the field to Cooks. Jerry Jones even said in his interview that, hey, that play is a high percentage succession play, and if he would have made the catch, we'd have all been like, oh my gosh, what a ballsy move! And he was just thinking, hey, we can't run the ball. But as fans, I guess again after the fact, we're all thinking, yeah, Tony Pollard probably wouldn't have gotten a first down, but you run the ball. Run down the clock what you can, make him use your timeouts, and we're fine with that logic. But at the same point, let's say they do that, they kick their field goal, and Detroit goes down, scores a touchdown, they get a legit 2-point conversion out of it, and they lose. Things might have been different for sure. But again, we're just criticizing what happened, and really going into that game, you say you beat the Lions by 1. I think we all take it, and I totally agree. I think they squeaked by with 1. They were able to hopefully take from this that, hey, we sucked in this game.
Yeah.
We beat a quality opponent and we sucked. Luckily it didn't cost us anything. At the time we were looking for, as I said last week's show, momentum going into the playoffs, because really before Philadelphia lost to Arizona, we were thinking we're the 5th seed. This doesn't do much for us except extend a winning streak, helps our confidence. And luckily, you're playing in Washington next week on the road, so you can kind of get something rolling on the road. Whereas, okay, they won. If they would have lost, I don't know we would have cared near as much. But now that Philadelphia lost, if we would have lost this game, if the Cowboys would have lost this game, we'd be, calling for Mike McCarthy's head. Where you could have won this game. You played like crap and you would have only lost by a point, I guess. But a lot of TikTokers I've seen, I guess that's what they call TikTokers, people on TikTok. I've seen memes like where they're pulling out the drama of all this and saying the NFL has a chance to change the outcome of a game for the first time ever. Like, I don't know the rules, like they could even go in there and change it, but the NFL has come out and said they've punished the referee crew, but they didn't. I mean, it was for the whole game, like the tripping penalty that kind of almost cost the Cowboys the game. And again, I alluded to, if they would have let that play stand, it would have been just as big of a controversy, because the Cowboys would have said, hey, number 70 reported. So they're not going to change anything. It all comes down, and you mentioned, Chris, like how great the Lions are being, the fans and everything. Dan Campbell and Jared Goff have been upset and distraught, as anybody should be in that situation of what happened. But I think they've been pretty classy, because they understand. Even Dan Campbell said it. I was trying to confuse the defense, even though the refs are going to tell them, hey, number 70 or number 60, they're going to tell them who reports. but I put enough confusion out there, it ended up confusing the refs and screwing up the whole thing. There's no way to make that right in the moment to say, okay, it's good, because then you screw the Cowboys over. Maybe, I don't even know if this could have been a thing where in the rule book, in the moment, if they realize, hey, we called the wrong number out, I think they figured that out later, that the ref screwed it up, that you could replay the down. I don't know in the moment what the rules say in that, but for sure you're not going to give the 2-point conversion because the Cowboys didn't even guard him because he wasn't an eligible receiver, according to the refs. It doesn't matter who reported or not. But I don't blame Dan Campbell for trying to do that. I think that's something that I don't know if it would have worked in the sense that we'd have been like, hey, that's a brilliant play. You're trying to bend the rules without cheating, and it just kind of backfired to an extent. And then really, Dan Campbell has taken slack for this. After that, after the Micah Parsons jumps offside, after all of that, I think you just kick the field goal and take it to overtime. That's what he could have done after. It's not like they change the call, they say, oh, no, penalty, and then the game's over. They had an opportunity to kick the field goal 2 different times and take it to overtime.
Yeah, he's that type of coach, though. He takes chances. He goes for it on 4th down almost more than anybody.
And he mentioned it. No matter what, before that drive, we were going to go for 2 if we scored that touchdown. Yeah. And I'm not so sure the Lions don't win if they go to overtime, because you look at the momentum where the Cowboys couldn't even get a first down.
Yeah.
No,
in all
the Lions
honesty,
just drove down the field.
Yeah, in all honesty, I think as much as the officiating crew kind of messed up the whole and eligible receiver and whatever, I personally think that was the best play call. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think they were trying to do too much. I think they were trying to be too cute and trying to like confuse the Dallas defense. And I genuinely think if they would have just gone out there and run the play without running 3 guys up to the referees to try and confuse the defense, I think that play would have worked. Like they probably would have scored on that 2-point conversion. And I totally agree too. Replaying it twice and deciding to go for it both times as well instead of kicking the PAT is also a really ballsy call. Like it's one thing to go for it on the first try and then you fail or whatever, and then you just kick the PAT or whatever. Really ballsy to go for it all 3 times.
And the play that they didn't complete, it was a great play. Jared Goff just put enough on it. He was wide open. So
he was wide open. He should have caught it. It hit him in the hands. I mean, it was a little low, but he should have caught that.
It was tough. So I mean, you have 2 good play calls and they both don't go your way. If you lose that way, that's just the way it is, But you got to go in, especially with the Cowboys being undefeated at home. It's the Dallas Cowboys, you're the Detroit Lions. You haven't been in this position in God knows how long. It's one of your best seasons going, in history, really. So, and he's just that type of coach. I love those type of coaches where
I love the aggression.
Put the hands of your players. Give your players a chance to go out there and win the game. And he did that. Jared Goff on the last play just didn't get enough on it. Got a little pressure, but it's what it is. This is a learning experience for them. They're already in the playoffs. So it's just it's one of those things that happens. The refs kind of dictate the game from time to time. It just is what it is.
For sure. Good for the Cowboys, bad for the Lions.
Right.
And real quick, we'll go over this next part before we jump to college football. This game almost shouldn't have mattered. Like if everything goes the way it's supposed to go, we're probably talking, hey, that's a weird thing, but it doesn't affect much. But now, because the Eagles lose to the Cardinals, the Cowboys, if they would have lost this game, we talked about, would have been terrible. But if the Lions would have won this game, they'd be in the 2nd seed right now. Yeah. So Eagles Cardinals, I was kind of checking in on my scoring app and saw 21-7. I'm like, okay, it's not happening. And then all of a sudden I look down, it's 21-21. So I thought I have to watch this. And the boos that were coming down from Philadelphia fans, every single play call, it was ridiculous. They want to fire their head coach after 2 successful seasons. He sent him to the Super Bowl. But I mean, Peterson felt the same way. He had, I think, 3 winning seasons and a Super Bowl win. First losing season, he's out of there. That's a brutal place to have to coach. But the dysfunction, as you mentioned, Dan, lost 4 out of the last 5. I don't even know that I'd be surprised if they lost to the Giants at this point.
I mean, they barely beat them. I mean, I say barely. They beat them by 8, 33-25.
Yeah, I think the Giants came back a little bit.
But that's not the blowout I would have expected to see the Eagles put down on the Giants this year. Like the Giants have just been so unoffensive all season that, for them to put up 25 against the Eagles, I feel like is a lot. And I just written this down, but the Eagles over this last 5-week period where they're 1-4, 31st in points per game, 29th in yards per game. So their defense has been like non-existent for like the last 5 weeks. And you get to this late in the season and everything, and like this is where like teams are like really tested. It's one thing to be great for like the first 8 games of the season. It's another thing to be great for the last 8 games of the season. And in this particular situation, it's like as well as the Eagles were playing that first half of the season, this just does not look like the same Eagles team we were watching in September. They're struggling so much to stop people. It doesn't feel like their offense is playing at the level that it was playing a couple months ago either. And I mean, it's just honestly, it's just kicked the door open for the Cowboys to clinch the division. I think when we were talking about this, 4 weeks ago before the Eagles played the Seahawks and lost to them, I think we were all like looking at the Eagles schedule, like these should be 4 games that they should absolutely go and win, especially when 2 of them are against the Giants and, one's against the Cardinals. I don't think any of us were expecting them to go, 4-1 or 1-4 over the last 5 weeks, especially to close out the season. It was like, man, this is going to be real tough for the Cowboys to like win out. And then maybe we get lucky and the Eagles lose 1 of these 4. Now they've lost 2. And I mean, it is just all for the Cowboys right now.
If you told me going into these final 5 games where the Cowboys play Eagles, Bills, Dolphins, Lions, that if the Cowboys go 2-2 in that 4-game stretch, I don't know that we probably expecting that one way or the other.
Yeah.
Not how some of these games have ended, but if you told me they go 2-2 and they're still in the driver's seat to win the division going into Washington, I'd be surprised. Because we all thought you have to win out and hope the Eagles help you out. So the Eagles have definitely helped you out, and you haven't even had to be at your best. Next week for sure. I mean, the Cowboys. I mean, really, it's between the 2 and the 5 seed. I guess if the Lions win, Cowboys lose, and Eagles lose, Cowboys could be the 3 seed. I'm not sure, but next week.
I know Cowboys clinched the division with a win at Commanders or an Eagles loss.
Yeah, so if the Eagles lose, they're at least they're definitely
shouldn't
the division.
Happen, but
no, it shouldn't. But if the Lions win, I guess because they have the same record right now, the Lions would jump the Cowboys. So
would it even with tiebreaker? You think?
Well, they have the same record now. They're both 11-5. So if the Cowboys lost and the Eagles lost, Cowboys still get the division, and so I guess the Cowboys would be the 3 seed. So they could be the 2, 3, or 5 seed. But we'll definitely be back next week talking, recapping the Washington game. And really, I think we can go, once we have the final playoff bracket, we can.
I want them to avoid San Fran at all costs.
I think at this point, knowing what we know, going into all you have to do is go beat Washington. Mm-hmm. That you're going to have the first 2 games at home, assuming you win the first wild card game. Mm-hmm. I think at this point it's a disaster if you don't make it to the NFC Championship game. I mean, you're talking about beating. You're probably playing the Packers, the Vikings, maybe the Seahawks, and then after that, the Lions, Eagles. Maybe I guess it depends. They reseed it, so it depends. It would have to be a road team to win for the Eagles to play Dallas or whatever. I'm not sure, but 2 teams you've already beaten at home. Or, again, Vikings, Rams, Packers, whatever combination.
So they'll play the 7th seed first, and then they'll play the winner of the 3-6 seed. So
yeah, I mean, it could be Packers, Vikings, Rams, Seahawks in whatever order in
All
either the
those
second or the third seed. If you lose and the Eagles win, I mean, you're playing Tampa or New Orleans. Maybe Atlanta has a chance to win that division too. I'm not sure.
just yeah. I mean, I can't remember as a like conscious adult. I was alive when they won the Super Bowl, but I've never personally like
This is
been to
this is the most wide open path they've had
Yeah,
to the
exactly.
NFC
Yeah.
Championship game.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you can just beat Washington and
I just
guarantee
want them play
first
to
2
get
weeks.
into to the Super Bowl, like have a chance to get to the Super Bowl. That's like, like I mean, I've only seen the Rangers win. I've saw the Rangers win. I've seen the Mavs win. The Stars, but as far as like the Cowboys, this is I'm pretty sure I've said this before, but this is their best shot to get to the Super Bowl, especially with the Eagles dropping the ball the way that they have, and just everything kind of lining up. Just win next week. I mean, but it is a divisional game. I'm trying to stay humble,
Realistic,
grounded,
yeah.
you know what I mean? So
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not expecting him to go and blow them out 40-10 or anything. It's on the road, and their offense has struggled. Their defense has struggled in certain situations, but just obviously win. But put together something where, hey, we can play on the road. It's got to be, I talked about last week. Most of it's got to be mental. They don't even know a reason why they're not winning on the road, or playing on the road as well as they're playing at home, which is most teams, but it's like night and day different.
that's like
Yeah.
That
completely.
just put it in your head. Like if you lose to Washington, that'll just exacerbate the problem. It will definitely make it mental then because and there's something to play for. They play at the same time as the Eagles and Giants, so there's no chance. I mean, it's you win the division. You lose, you more than likely lose the division, unless it's a close game. You see the Eagles get blown out, but you win, you guarantee yourself the number 2 seed as well, which in the long run will help you because if you're the 3 seed, then you could go to San Francisco in the second round.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, 3. No,
Something you don't want that.
no, that'd be the 4 seed. Never mind. You won't go to San Francisco. If you get the 2 or 3 seed, you won't have to see San Fran until
the
conference championship. But still, you don't. If you're the 3 seed, you could. If the Lions win, I said, assuming the Lions are the 2 seed, you would go to Detroit in the second round. The only way to guarantee yourself home the first 2 rounds would be to just beat Washington. Just beat Washington. Yeah. I mean, Philadelphia could still lose and the Lions could still lose, but just go take care of business. Get yourself on a roll where you feel confident going into the playoffs, and we'll see.
Definitely.
Before we leave, let's talk about college football and the college football playoff, which we had 2 pretty good games. Especially, obviously Bama, Georgia was good. Texas wasn't that close until the near end, but it was still pretty exciting.
Yeah, definitely.
Bama, Georgia. I have to admit,
Bama,
I was
Michigan.
wrong. Or excuse me, Bama, Michigan. I typed in Georgia. I don't know why I did Michigan. I was copy and pasting my notes. Bama, Michigan.
It was definitely Michigan.
It was definitely Michigan. I don't know. Georgia might be able to make a run in the playoff if they were in it. Alabama, Michigan.
Say about that.
Overtime. I was wrong. I was thinking Bama was going to win this by 10 points at least. I didn't think Michigan was real. I thought Bama was on a roll. I was not expecting this to happen.
Yeah, me too. First, the committee got it right because
two great games.
Both 2 great games. Florida State losing by 60 points. I understand that a lot of people opted out, but that's not 60 points. Like that's, Ball State lost by 40. So like to Georgia. Yeah. So but besides that, 2 great games. Like you, Ashton, I also had Bama winning. I thought it was going to be a 10 plus game, 2 touchdown game. But Michigan, they proved otherwise. They came out, they fought hard. Bama jumped out early, got to an early lead. I thought they threw a pick on the first play, but that was just a great game. And then the Washington Texas game, Um, Obviously, I was going for Texas, but Michael Penix looked like the high.
Wow.
He was unbelievable. He couldn't do any wrong. Um, it's tough because obviously I was rooting for Texas, and they made the comeback. They got all the way down to the 12 or 13-yard line, and just a better ball from Quinn. I think that's a easy back shoulder touchdown. But salute to the committee for picking the four best teams.
Yeah, and a thought on Florida State because they're trying to defend themselves. Uh, Georgia was in a similar situation.
They opted out 27 people.
Yeah, the Georgia was
Yep.
in a similar situation where they thought maybe that they should have been in because they lost in overtime. One loss to a really good Bama team
Mhm.
where they could have done the same thing, but they didn't have that many people
They
opt
did.
out. They came in and they played and just beat the snot out of Florida State. It
Yeah.
wasn't like they won by 20. They that's what South Alabama. That's what happens to South Alabama when they play Alabama or
Citadel.
Georgia.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if Georgia or Michigan or whoever, if they sit that many players, if they lose by 60 points. That
No.
was just ridiculous and embarrassing. And maybe you could have thrown Georgia in there, and it would. But I think for sure that the committee got it right. Had two great games. As a Texas fan, disappointing the Washington game. Washington definitely outplayed them. It looked a lot closer. In the end, Ewers had pretty decent stat line at the end, threw for over 300 yards, but he started off really slow. That third quarter was terrible for Texas, but Penix Jr., 430 yards passing. Xavier Worthy had 2 catches for 45 yards. They just ate him alive on the defense. And, of course, you had C.J. Baxter and Jaden Blue both fumbled.
Both fumbled twice, yeah.
You take one of those fumbles away, maybe it's a different game, but, I mean, what are you going to do? And then the Washington, to their credit, figured out if we just kick it short on the kickoff, they're gonna fumble the return every single time. They kept the ball every single time, but it was like they fumbled it. They get it at the 2-yard line. They fumbled it, kind of recover, got it at the 15-yard line. They said we're gonna stop kicking it to them. They're just gonna fair catch it. We just squid kick it to them. They're gonna get it inside the 20, and they just weren't able to take care of it. So we have obviously a great Alabama-Michigan overtime game. But now we have Michigan-Washington Monday night for the national championship.
Yeah, man, I thought Michigan beat Alabama like B Rabbit beat Papa Doc at the end of 8 Mile. Man, it was like Michigan showed up and like just knew what Alabama wanted to do and just took it to them. I appreciated the aggressiveness. They were messing up Alabama's backfield the whole time. Honestly, when they got to that overtime and everything, the crazy part was I thought Michigan was going to manage to win this thing in regulation, and then they muffed that punt and managed to recover it, got it on the 1. So they just take it to overtime, got a little lucky there. But once they got into overtime, man, it felt like Bama's play calling just went out the window. I don't know what they were thinking or what they were doing, but what they did like 2 or 3 draw plays and it wasn't working. And then it was like that final play, that fourth down, and it was like getting the end zone. And then they were like, just draw it again. And I was like, that was a terrible decision. Like, so I don't necessarily know what happened there. It kind of felt like Harbaugh outcoached Saban, which is a crazy statement to make. I mean, Saban's considered probably the greatest college coach in football right now. I don't think anybody would have thought Harbaugh was going to outcoach him in this game. But I mean, Michigan played a really great game, especially like just constantly fighting their way back, keeping it close the whole time, and then just keeping their composure all the way through that fourth quarter, sent it to overtime. Great. I mean, it was a great game though. I mean, I was pulling for Michigan. I got a buddy who went to Bama, so naturally I like to give him a hard time about it and everything. So it was a lot more fun to watch Michigan win that one. And then honestly, I feel like I was the same way. I was with you, Chris. I wanted Texas to win this game against Washington. I really thought they were going to. I was expecting to see a one-sided game, and it turned out to be one-sided. It just was not for the Longhorns. And just like you said, man, Penix could not do wrong. He was dropping dimes over guys' shoulders perfectly, just right into their basket. Like
Yeah.
defenders couldn't reach it. Man, that corner didn't see half those passes coming. By the time he looked back, the ball was already in his man's
Yeah, a
hands.
couple of those, he was like defending, and like the ball was already here, and like
Yeah, as soon
he
as he
turned
turned his
around and the
head.
guy was already celebrating, but like he didn't even know the ball was there. That's yeah,
Yeah, and
it was a
they
clean.
they were some of the sweetest passes I've seen.
Mhm.
Man, they were perfect. They were just boom, right where they needed to be. And
Yeah,
every time he did it, I was like, Texas is going to lose this game. This kid is no joke. It was honestly, it was almost like watching Vince Young after he got snubbed from the Heisman, and he
Yeah.
showed up and was like, "Watch me," like
Mhm.
should have won the Heisman. And man, I can't help but feel like even the committee's got to be wondering, like, did we pick the right guy for the Heisman? This kid's playing some incredible ball right now.
I feel like they did. It was
I
just
mean, I think they did too, but man,
yeah,
like what a performance to go out there and
yeah,
put up.
yeah.
So, but yeah,
I personally thought um, I think Washington's gonna win on Monday. Um, I I was watching the Michigan Bama game and I was like, I don't think any of these two teams are better than Washington or Texas. I thought it was just they were just doing like things that they weren't like. I mean, they were both physical. It was a great game. Um, they were just doing everything that Texas does well. Texas stops the run well. Blake Corum, he's a great running back, but I feel like they could have neutralized that, and they already beat
Yeah.
Bama. So um, I was thinking of it from a Texas fan perspective, and I also not knowing how good Washington was. The Pac-12 is a down conference. It's not really the best conference. So to see them do that, and they beat Texas last year as well. So I should have had more of a humble outlook on the game, but I have Washington winning on Monday.
Yeah,
I think
I'll take Michigan because I think they got over the hump because we've seen them in the playoff before and they really haven't done anything. That's why I picked Alabama because Alabama had been there before
Yeah,
almost every single year. And until I saw Michigan, make that leap and be able to make it, I think this is their fourth time in, um, and they haven't been able to make it to the championship. So I think Michigan got over that hump. I think it's going to be a great game, but
yes,
I'll pick Michigan.
yeah. I mean, I think I really want to pick Michigan, but and I mean, I think Michigan's got that chip on their shoulder, like you were just saying, like
But
they
Penix
want it real
Jr. is
bad.
just,
he's
Getting beat by TCU last year, I think really put
yeah,
a bad taste in their mouth. Michigan really wants it. But yeah, man, watching Penix play in that game against Texas was I I would feel foolish betting against him. So as much as I want to pick Michigan, I think it's Washington's game.
yeah.
I think it's theirs.
It's definitely going to be hard. But guys, thanks for tuning into this episode of the Sports Page. We'll be back next week going over Cowboys playoffs and what path they are going to have to take to get to the Super Bowl, hopefully with the 2 seed, but we'll have it here broken down for you all next week. Until next time, I'm Ashton with Chris and Dan. See you guys later.
All right,
Thanks,
see
guys.
you guys.